Allora, buongiorno a tutti, possiamo cominciare. Grazie innanzitutto di essere qui con noi per questo seminario di questa mattina. Ci fa molto piacere avere come ospite Alex Chafuen, che è presidente dell'Atlas Network. L'Atlas Network è un think tank, è un'organizzazione no profit americana che si occupa di promuovere i principi della società libera in tutto il mondo. È una istituzione molto importante e proprio per promuovere gli ideali della libertà. Chafuen si è laureato all'Università Cattolica Argentina e in questa università ha anche insegnato, è stato docente anche in altri atenei come l'Università di Buenos Aires e la Hispanic American University in California. Ha pubblicato anche dei libri, in Italia è stato tradotto da Liberi Libri, l'editore di Macerata, il suo Cristiani per la Libertà, e inoltre è anche un collaboratore stabile di un'importante testata giornalistica come Forbes. Quindi siamo molto contenti, anche alla luce di questo curriculum molto importante di Chafuen, di averlo qui con noi. Oggi gli chiederemo di spiegarci un po' cosa sta facendo il presidente Trump. Perché appunto già dalla campagna elettorale abbiamo cominciato a seguire questo personaggio e, diciamo così, nel dibattito italiano arrivano più magari i modi con cui svolge il suo ruolo di presidente, ma sarebbe interessante capire se oltre questi modi poco diplomatici, diciamo, poco convenzionali, c'è anche della sostanza. Quindi in questi primi mesi di presidenza cercheremo di capire cosa effettivamente sta facendo Trump alla presidenza. Prego.
Buongiorno, io parlerò in inglese. Sono di Argentina, diciamo gli argentini sono italiani che parliamo spagnolo, stiamo in francese, ma vogliamo essere in inglese. Io sono un terzo italiano, ma it's a pleasure to be with you. I think this is being recorded and streamed, so I will be a little more careful than other previous occasions when I spoke about the same topic in many countries, because I find that the media, the news that come from the United States, especially from the major media, from Washington, New York, or California, completely biased. But when I go abroad, it's even worse. Some of the things that I know by living in the middle of what President Trump calls the swamp, you know, I get a perspective that is very different, even from many of my peers. I have been on record early on in interviews saying that Trump could win, and people just could not believe it. But one of the advantages that I have is that we have a house 2 hours away from Washington, D.C., in the rural area of Virginia. A beautiful county called Rappahannock that doesn't have any traffic lights. All right? And that is like a different world, only an hour and 40 minutes from the Beltway. And in this election, you know, I was seeing more and more signs for Trump. And when the election came, President Trump won 70% of the vote. This, in the previous election, Obama barely lost in that county, because it's more in all the rural parts, people vote for President Trump. In the city, vote for more socialistic candidates. My house, where I live most of the time, is in a place near the Beltway called Tyson's Corner, McLean, and they are just an hour and 20 minutes from the farm, and only 20 minutes from Washington, D.C. There already Hillary Clinton won 70% of the vote, just exactly the opposite. But if you go to my office in the middle of downtown, President Trump got 5%, correct? And that's where most of the think tanks live and work in the United States. And New York was very similar. And again, don't think it because it was Trump. in the Republican primaries, the candidate that was more prepared, scholarly, and ended up being the #2 in the selection of voters, Ted Cruz. Ted Cruz ended up with 4% in Washington, D.C. So you realize that it's not just Trump. There were books like Charles Martin's book called Coming Apart, describing the two Americas that were growing farther and farther apart. And there was a void there, and honestly, President Trump, candidate Trump, was like in the bottom of my list. I'm not Republican, I'm not Democrat, the same like Trump. Trump is neither a Republican or a Democrat, Trump is Trump. No, you try to put him in an ideological closet, he doesn't fit here, right? So, the Republican candidates starting attacking each other, spending millions. The worst case for me was Jeb Bush spending over $20 million to attack Senator Rubio. And the attack was that he was not going to vote enough. He was absent from the chamber. And he said nothing ideological, right? So we thought that Republicans were committing suicide. But at the same time, that from one side. At the same time, we have to understand the scene that we were facing these years. I have been in the nonprofit business all my life in the United States. I moved 33 years ago. I have never seen the government using the tax agency, the IRS, Internal Revenue Service, to attack and persecute people who vote differently. And the attack, how it was used to attack the sort of Tea Party nonprofits. Tea Party is the name they give to the grassroots movement parties. I had never seen that before. Even some months before, they disclosed the list of donors to people who work against the bureaucrats to redefining marriage. So we are all as nonprofits required to put the list of major donors, correct? But the IRS have been very good, never disclosing that. They disclosed that, and the person, an executive of a major company, lost his job for that. But again, the typical tool of populism is using agencies to further their cause. Fake news. You know, another tool of populism. When the Benghazi attack came, how everyone colluded to say that the Benghazi attack was the creation of a YouTube video that caused this uproar. And the line continued to be told, correct, by people who continue to be invited as major speakers, you know, like Susan Rice. And it was amazing. The demonizing, another great key strategy of populism, you know, is demonizing the enemy. President candidate Clinton called deplorables everyone who was not voting for her. They said, oh, you will have to, revisions should change to accommodate to the new government. So we were seeing things that we have never seen before. Again, perhaps people in the elite like that, correct? Or people who live from government. But the people who were on the other side, part of the victims, you know, say, hey, no, this is impossible. And we had a Republican Congress. And nothing was going on Republican Senate. So people were really getting fed up. Also we go to the election where there was a famous speech by President Obama saying, no, I am the true populist. We are the true populists. No, President Trump doesn't deserve that name. And they were promising increased public spending for everything, you know, condoning the student debt, correct? Giving free healthcare, so for everyone. So that is in that context that we go to the election. And so when candidate Trump, I met him. There is a group called Council for National Policy, started more or less around the early 80s, almost the same as the Atlas Network. You might be seeing every now and then being demonized, because this is a gathering of people. It's a society that is private, as secret as you can be in a nonprofit in the United States. That really tries to influence what takes place in the country. And it has a lot of, I don't know how you say, convening power, clout. Okay? So when, especially during election years, the candidates come and speak to us. Right? I'm an on and off member, it's very expensive to be a member. Sometimes I'm a member, sometimes I'm not. This time, I was when President Trump came. And one of the typical questions we ask to people, to the candidates, who like us will you nominate? And he said, to our surprise, I think we need more judges like Clarence Thomas. Yeah. But then 2 weeks after, they asked him this, no, who could be a good candidate for the Supreme Court? And he said, his sister, that is a very interventionist socialist, Trump's sister, oh, she would make a good candidate. And so he said, hey, this guy is impossible to me. So after that reaction, he asked there's a society, also the same early 80s, called the Federalist Society, that trains lawyers and people, I think most of the judges have passed through the programs, who has a very talented vice president called Leonard Leo, L-E-O. And he asked the Heritage Foundation, that has a former Attorney General, Ed Meese, that to come up with a list of judges to nominate. And they presented a superb list of judges, and Trump committed that he was going to nominate them. Again, until it happened, most of the people did not believe that that was possible. Correct? But being the rule of law, perhaps the most important ingredient by all empirical measures, that help free society, that was a key moment, I think, in the process of Trump. The second amazing thing was the selection of the vice president. And now my presentation was based mostly from the Bruno Leoni type. It's going to be through my lenses of the think tank world in the administrations, correct? Because there are so many facets in administration. So, but the family of think tanks in the United States is huge. So there's almost no area of economic policy where we don't find a specialized think tank working on it. But what happened is that Trump had first elected Governor Christie, who's very similar to him in character, to be the guy who would build a team. And Governor Christie had his own legal issues because he played creating things that created the traffic congestion in purpose to damage the other political side. But Christie selected Ed Fellner as the key man to help choose who was going to be in the team, the head of the transition team. Fellner was the creator, almost co-founder of the Heritage Foundation, a think tank that has more than 500,000 supporters, an 80 to 100 million budget. They constantly survey those supporters, constantly. And they were telling them, what were the concern that they were listening is totally different than what Cato, another big think tank, or American Enterprise Institute were listening. So it's like two different worlds right there. Governor Christie falls because his process continued, and then Trump chooses his vice president, chose Mike Pence, who came from the think tank world, Indiana Policy Review Foundation in the early 80s, went to Liberty Fund programs and had participated in Atlas program to be the candidate of vice president, and Pence chooses Ken Blackwell, former Lieutenant Governor and Secretary of State of Ohio, a super talented black figure. I share a board with him in the most conservative free market university in the United States, so I know him for many years. And he sort of continued with the same people choosing the team. And people are policy, correct? And so almost all the first appointments came through this recommendation process with think tanks behind it. So what I'm going to do basically is going point by point and tell you more or less where where they stand today in the reforms. Most important, again, I think it's the justice appointments and the judicial appointments, not only to the Supreme Court. They are outstanding. But something that is new that is going on is, well, I use the word deep state. How the bureaucrats who we will outlast the president are trying to stop most appointments. It's unbelievable. I have never seen something like this in any country. I have colleagues, trustees, superb lawyers who have been nominated as judges. I have one particular case, and I think I mentioned it here. No, I shouldn't be recorded. He got accepted to the Philadelphia Society, one very old, prestigious society in the United States. I don't have the privilege to preside this year. But he says, look, I'm not going to accept your invitation to be a member because it will create another flank of attack. The Society of Scholars will be like the Bruno Leone Society. They know, I don't want to belong because they're going to keep attacking. Pray for me. It's the most vicious thing that I have seen. So many of the judicial appointments, are being delayed. They changed the rules to go for simple majority for the case for the Supreme Court, but not for the other cases. So that is where almost most friends of the free society, I would say, people like us, are happy with Trump. In the end, from Reason magazine, the most libertarian, to the most conservative, have praised this. But again, even with Gorsuch, they did not get a single Democratic vote. The think tank called Judicial Crisis Network, they spent $23 million just to be in defending Gorsuch. Imagine the money that is being spent in this war is unbelievable. The next very important thing for the free society is education. And there, quietly, we have the Minister of Education, Betsy DeVos, the Secretary of Education. I heard her last week. She gave the annual lecture for Afghan Institute. I'm thinking that I'm on the board too, not only trustee. I have never heard in my life a Minister of Education speaking for freedom in education and parents' responsibility as Betsy did. And she spent 10 years as co-trustee with the Afghan Institute, but then devoted all his life to promoting charter school and more choice for better life for children. But there's nothing more vicious, correct, than the education unions, unfortunately, in the United States. So the moment that she says, I want to do this, I want to do that, they even bring up lawsuits to stop some of the reforms. But she's going to advance. So I have sent letters of recommendation to nominate good undersecretaries. One that I know very well is Super Network, also member of the Philadelphia Society, is Adam Kissel. Adam Kissel was working before for the Koch Foundation, KOCH, a major supporter of American libertarian groups, and superb person. And so she's slowly building her team. In the environment, something against, you cannot speak well of Trump in Europe, but also you cannot speak against the climate of the Paris Agreement. Almost the United States think tank world is very different than in other parts of the world. We get the big think tanks get almost no support from corporations, 1 or 2%. They tell you, they oppose the climate agreement because they're in the pockets of the oil industry. That's a joke. I know the bishop from Argentina in the Vatican repeats those stupid things, but it's exactly the opposite. The big companies are not just open the newspapers in the campaigns, they all are bought. They can play the game of the big bureaucratic environmental organization. It's a small businessman who can't. So almost only one think tank, 150 that are more or less market-oriented, attacked Trump on that topic, which is the think tank, an offshoot of the Cato Institute called Miskanen Institute, which tries to present things almost like a sort of compromise with some what people call left-wing causes. But there again, the person who headed the transition team for the environment was Tom Pyle, who was the president of the Institute for Energy Research around the same time. We have supported and worked from the beginning, totally tied with the free market world. And then the other person who was choosing people in the environment is Myron Evo from the Competitive Enterprise Institute, another super free market thinker. President Trump, or Pence, I don't know who, or Ken Blackwell, they put a rule that those who were recommending cannot put themselves. So that means that these key guys who help put people in the administration could not put themselves. Paul Atkins, another totally good friend of the free market. This is, it would be like saying no, the Ricosas or the Benedettis of the United States. Paul Atkins select people for the Securities and Exchange Commission. Again, these are part from family donors, people, not everyone, Myron Evo is not a donor. You know, people say, hey, the Trump administration is the billionaires and the junta, the military and the billionaires, but there are people who are not so super rich. The think tank that was recommending people for education, I forgot to say, was the Milton Friedman Foundation, Edge Choice Foundation. So again, some of these things are not secret. Before we will not say these things, but on economics, which I usually start with economics, but this time I'm ending with economics because again, especially on the topic of free trade, Trump has been listening to an economist, Harvard PhD called Peter Navarro. And this is a person who his views on trade are very different than the ones that the Institute of Bruno Leone would defend. And but at the same time, there were three great free market figures with impeccable reputations that early on lent their support to candidate Trump. Steve Moore, one of the economists who knows more about the US economy, the most pro-immigration economist for many years in the United States. Steve worked for Cato, for Heritage, and for the Wall Street Journal. Another one is Steve Forbes, and another one is Arthur Laffer. They are the three biggest champions of reduced taxation. Of those, the only one who I think, and Larry Kudlow, another famous economist, TV figure. Kudlow flirted with going to the Senate. Steve is already a figure, and Trump chose to put a team of more established people from Goldman Sachs. Right. The tax proposal is that Trump sent is I think it will be passed, but not as aggressive. No, he first wanted to reduce corporate taxation to 15. Now they're speaking of 20 or 25. It depends on circumstances. But none of those free market economists joined the government, but they all created a special association to push for those reforms in the past. But again, given what you said in the introduction, the nasty style of Trump, that they were voting for other candidates, there are some groups. I believe that at least that even libertarians are against. They don't mention the good things of Trump, because they hate this aspect or this other aspect. That the Cato Institute, one of the best economists of Cato, Mark Calabria, superb. We have an inner discussion group in Washington D.C. of monetary economy, and he was part of it. Mark is the chief economist of Mike Pence, but Cato, I think, must have mentioned it only once in a publication that Mark Calabria joined the administration, almost like it's a sin. Other people read, it took the time, but the Council of Economic Advisors, the head of the Council of Economic Advisors, Kevin Haster of the American Enterprise Institute. Last week I was at a reception in the IMF World Meeting. I said, Alex, and I see this young superstar economist member of the Confederate Society that we had invited. I thought it was English because it's Harvard, Oxford. Tyler Goodspeed. What are you doing? Oh, I'm in the Council of Economic Advisors. For England? No, for Trump. And again, and then some of the nominations for the Federal Reserve Bank. For Governor Marvin Goodfriend, again, was head of a think tank in Carnegie Mellon, superb. John Taylor, I don't know if it's my favorite candidate. He's a complete good friend at Stanford, top-rated professor, but also he worked as undersecretary with, for international trade with President Bush. He's one of the key candidates to replace Yellen, but he has the ear of the president. Adam Lerich is now deputy to David Malpass. David Malpass is also joined the administration. David Malpass was the chief person promoting free trade in the Americas, the President Bush's father. Okay. And Adam Lerich is the best financial economist perhaps in the world, in the Germans consult with him, also former head of a think tank. And he's been slowly blocked by the Obama holdovers and this deep state. I can tell you a little bit how they do these things. You know, they which asking, well, we're trying to find conflict of interest, asking, hey, you received this check from this group. No, we have to study if there's a conflict of interest in the work with that group. But instead of doing it all at once, like the FBI does, they study everything about the person, they gather information, they do a focus meeting, and then it's yes or no. The ethics department of the Office of Management and Budget and others have discretion on how they want to nominate. So I think this is part of the reason that the agenda has been going very slow. Okay? And I think when I said this, the good, the bad, and the ugly. The good have been some of these nominations that have been superb, and people who are the first time that we have candidates say, I want to reduce regulation, reduce government spending in all areas except military and infrastructure. Well, as I already said, liberate, the educational system. We never had something like that in the history of the United States. The appointment of even President Reagan were not so consistent with what free market thinkers were pushing. But the bad is how the power of the bureaucracy, entrenched bureaucracy has. Again, remember that the government spending continued to grow in the United States under Bush and under Obama. Obama increased the public debt almost as much as all the debt increase in the whole entire history of the United States, correct? It's very similar to the GDP. A few more comments before we go to Q&A, because we said we we're going to speak like 20 minutes. One of my closest friends, who I know for 20 years, was deputy assistant to the president, Sebastian Gorka. He came with the strategies of the first year of Trump administration, who's Bannon, Steve Bannon. And Bannon created some positions that were not in line with the structure, with the hierarchical structure of government. So when Bannon left, some of the people who do they respond to? So some have left, but they have joined an effort which right now will add to the nastiness, because they, as they have the ear of the grassroots of the country, they are working very aggressively to push for the Trump agenda as they see it. Again, I endorse most of it, except I'm more pro-immigration and completely for free trade, correct? But the whole effort to deregulate, to reduce taxation, to lower the relevance of Washington, D.C., that's something that I completely endorse. Regarding the prospects, the economy people are expecting, and the reduction in regulation, expecting reduction in taxation. Some of the reforms are already taking place, but not with major laws, just just not renewing regulations, and businessmen are already seeing this, so has created an environment, almost exuberant. The stock market has increased, 25%, the amount of wealth, if we regard it as free market capitalist, it's an enormous injection of confidence in the economy. The healthcare debate is very, very difficult, very technical, and the senators and the Congress who were voting to repeal Obamacare time after time have not been able to pass the law. And so showing, that in the past it was a little bit of posture, so the image of Trump is low, it's just about 40%, no, it's positive. The image of the Congress is this one. And so we're going to see an ugly battle, a continuous ugly battle from all sides, which I don't think is not very constructive, but I think it's based on the frustration by many voters decided, look, the Republicans have betrayed us, so we need to try to make great changes, and we might prefer to lose than continue the same way. There's an election coming in early November in my state, Virginia, which has elections each year, the election for governor, which has a typical Republican establishment candidate with a typical Democrat. If the Republican candidate loses, then the Tea Party, the grassroots will really be emboldened, because they will say, look, even if you put your candidate, that is moderate, more like the Democrats, you lose. Because up to now, almost all the elections that have taken place since Trump's election, the more radical, conservative candidate has won, despite millions poured by the Republican establishment for their candidate. So again, it's a unique situation. I have a website, and I'm putting all the good appointments and the persons that don't have the email. My website is called Chafuen.com, and I have an area called Trump and his advisors. And as long as I don't damage the election process for some who are in the line, I'm putting it all there. I don't have their emails, but I would gladly share their information. Right now, the closest person that I have is another member of the Philadelphia Society, Paul Teller, Chief of Staff of Ted Cruz. He's the deputy for the president on legislative affairs and liaison with free market conservative groups. But again, Trump being Trump is basically, and this movement, they're very focused on the US. I feed them, I sometimes send information to international allies, but still, the relationship with Trump and the rest of the world suffers from almost no appointments, or very few appointments in most areas, except defense. Like, for example, now in the Americas, we don't have an undersecretary at the State Department. So the people who are making key decisions are all holdovers from the previous administration. In Europe, it's almost similar. There was a candidate that some of us know that was putting himself as Trump representative in Europe, and perhaps not really knows him. That was a self-promotion effort of this person, correct? So, again, a unique period in history. I'm ready to try to answer some questions in the most transparent and candid way that I can do without harming some of the people who are like Bruno Leone types inside the administration. Believe me, they exist, correct? The media doesn't speak about them, but I think, again, as people are policy, if they can stand the pressure, and President Trump behaves better and moderates a little bit his behavior, there is a chance, correct, that the United States will reverse course and go back to a more free market economy and more free society outlook. But again, Trump is not an easy person, and some of the people that he brought are not aligned with us, with the free market. But again, it's not as awful as people tend to present it in the United States and especially in Europe. Well, thank you so much, and we're ready for your question.
Allora, direi che possiamo raccogliere un po' di domande e interventi in italiano, in inglese o in spagnolo, come preferite. Qualcuno che ha qualche domanda o vuole fare qualche intervento?
You were mentioning the repeal of Obamacare recently. How is it possible that one of the topics of the key topics in the election campaign, the key topics in the political course in the United States, the Republican Party and Trump himself, they do not have a precise approach, and even a more moderate solution or a step-by-step solution, because I think if there is a failing on the side, it's very embarrassing for his administration.
Yeah, but we have been embarrassed many times, and but it's there's a great economist called John Goodman, who was the founder of a think tank that just recently closed door, the National Center for Policy Analysis, who worked very intelligently and with Congress and senators. He's open, and again, it looks like a heresy for many libertarians, but Hayek was in favor of a safety net. So there are some people who propose basic coverage for everyone and then free market completely, as much as possible, with portability and all the other things that Obamacare, the demand for the Obamacare for Affordable Care Act, which is the worst name that you misnomer. So, but I think we're only going to see marginal reform in that area. I don't think right now we have the ideological power and support to go to a very free market solution in healthcare. So that's my view on healthcare. On taxes is different. Taxes, I think there is good support for reforms, but again, never exactly as Trump wanted. Trump always hedged, saying, "No, this is what I propose. The rest doesn't depend on me." Correct. But right now, I think that the congressmen and the senators that are not acting according to the promises are going to suffer more than President Trump. I think President Trump's image suffers mostly due to his own, apart from that in the media, through his own faults. But again, there's going to be a cost, but not huge, and the cost might be in repeats of getting very radical conservative candidates like this, the last one in Alabama, Roy Moore, who defeated the establishment candidate, and in the general election might do worse. Correct, because the strategy of the Democrats. Well, this is a magazine called Examine Washington. The Democrats 2018 attack plan used Trump. The thing is not to defeat Trump. Pence is more hated than Trump by the establishment, much more, because he's well trained, well spoken, often less flanks of attack. So they wouldn't like to have President Pence. What they would like is just weaken Trump, and so that they can win in 2018 and recover perhaps the Senate and the Congress. I don't know if it will play. They will.
I would like to have your impression on the relationship, the international relationship. It looks like that the international relationship between the US and some of the key players in the world, China, are worsening. At least this is what we think we see from this side of the world. And this could be a huge problem also for free trade and this can be also a huge, let's say, trade-off for us in order to produce, to see our relation with the US, our relation with China, or with Russia. So,
well, it's interesting because, again, I tell people, don't look at President Trump as to the things I tell them. Hey, don't look at him as someone who comes from our world. He never supported anything, correct? And then his daughter Ivanka and Jared, the Democrats are on the other side, in the policy. But then to political observers, they don't look at him as this ideological statesman. How can you explain the asking, what do you think about Trudeau or Macron? Oh, they're wonderful. They're doing a great job. His view is, these guys, that's their corporation. They have to work for their corporation. They don't tell me what to do. That really gets him annoyed, correct? I have my advisors, correct? Now, so with I don't know how to pronounce Chinese, Xi Jinping, he had him, in his house, and he has a relationship, but the doctrine that Peter Navarro was pushing had China as the major problem in the world, and that is killing the United States in trade deals and all that, despite that Trump, his private business, does business with the Chinese. But from the point of view of geostrategy, I read the strategic positioning of President Bush in the early months of his tenure. I don't recall. I was surprised. China was the major enemy, the major threat. I was surprised because one of his uncles was head of the China-US Business Association. His dad had been head of the CIA in China with relations. But the key plan of President Bush, George W. Bush, was China the main enemy, Latin America the main ally, and they're going to love and attract the Muslim world. Correct? And boom, everything exploded September 11th. September 11th, we had President Fox in Washington, D.C., September 9th, ready to sign the free trade, an immigration deal. And we had bipartisan support. I was at the luncheon with Heritage, Brookings, and Carnegie, everyone there. And then the Argentinian government was also in Washington, D.C., ready to sign a free trade agreement. But China, so that was the world that we were seeing. But China, geostrategically, for the United States, is seen as an issue. The expansion in the South China Seas. Now and again, the debate with the Chinese for doing the Silk Road, the One Belt initiative. The growing presence of China in Africa, in Latin America. It's mostly economic presence. They're not involved in economics much on the political side of economics, but their economic presence and also their image in Latin America of the Chinese continues to improve. So again, I think that with Europe, I don't think you're going to see an attitude that puts all Europe in the same basket. It will depend country by country. But with Latin America, which is the region that I know the most, most of us are, except again in the area of trade, we're extremely pleased by the strong stance that the United States has taken to help liberate the people of Venezuela. And the way that they are getting allies that had people that were collaborating with the dictators to change and have a united front to liberate the people of Venezuela. Some of the things I didn't mention in my introduction, in order to pass the Iran deal and the Cuba deal, the way that the people in intelligence and defense were basically asked not to bring bad news. Personally, who basically were so annoyed that they took their badges, superstars, in the defense world, and they don't want to work here because you were finding, how Venezuela, the puppet master of Venezuela are the Cuban dictators, who control and direct everything that is done, or most of it is done in intelligence and defense. The Iranian, Hezbollah, the 2 terrorist attacks in Argentina, they blew up the Jewish center. Now information is coming out, and obviously they wanted to pass the deal, and they told everyone to keep quiet what was going on, and we were showing how the Hezbollah and the Iranian government were dealing. So I believe, I'm a strong believer that trade opens the door to better dialogue, and I have seen some moderation in the administration regarding NAFTA, the North American Free Trade Agreement, the trade pact in the Pacific, the fact that Trump withdrew, I think, created some openings for China to occupy some of those voids. The trade with Europe, I think the trade pact has more critics in Europe than in the United States, correct? More opposition here than in the United States. So again, in some areas, I'm glad what I see in foreign policy. In others, it's more problematic. But again, China is not the super free society that we want them to rule the world. We want the China that moves gradually, or some would like to move faster towards rule of law and a freer society. But it's not.
I have a question about the tax reform. Before you told that maybe this tax reform can pass not that strong as in original. But my question is, in your opinion, is it possible to pass this reform shrinking public spending, or a reform like that will end up in an increase of public debt?
We already saw an increase in growth. The magic here is to grow faster. Correct. I don't see with the current Congress, we just had record spending, in the last fiscal year, and although and given Trump's decision and the base, most of the base, not all, as you know, there's a libertarian part of the base that wants to reduce military spending. But given the increases that he plans for defense and security, there's no big plan for reduced spending. There's plans that the increasing growth, thanks to more business-friendly environment, will slowly reduce the percentage of government spending in the economy. So that, for example, the biggest cut he proposed to the State Department. He told them he wants to reduce 30%. And not in all defense, but to the National Security Council, he basically told them, you can have 1/4 of the staff that existed before. But in everything that has to do, having the best weapons and in defense and really improving infrastructure, I think it balances out. So the reform will mostly be coming through the regulatory process and taxation.
Yes, because many people here are concerned about foreign policy of Donald Trump, and especially on one topic, which is Russia. Because here the huge Russian lobby here in Italy was delighted by the victory of Donald Trump in November, but just after a few months, they were very disappointed, and especially after the first clash over Syria. And is there any guiding principle in foreign policy of Donald Trump and mainly on this topic?
I think people got it very wrong. The Russians obviously try to influence, like the United States, in many elections, but they have become masters, correct, at operating. Right now, some of the things that some of us knew, from the Clinton dealings with the Russians during the Obama administration, and again, we all remember how Obama telling Medvedev that, hey, if I get reelected, we're going to be good with Putin. So the major victim so far has been Michael Flynn. General Flynn, again, has been very friendly with many of my friends, but he was confronted even before the election, about being soft with Russia. But honestly, there was absolutely nothing ideologically bad. I think the vision of Michael Flynn in the Middle East was almost to get Russia to get involved in Syria, so it would happen the same as in Afghanistan. Okay, so it's not what the media tells you. That these guys are pro-Putin. Again, Sebastian Gorka, who for a while was like one of the key men there. He's totally anti-communist, correct? And again, he tried to attack him as being anti-Semite, which is a joke, correct? He's just an Orthodox Roman Catholic, and with tons of friends, Jewish friends, but all the more Netanyahu conservative line, not from the left. So I think the issue with Russian meddling in elections will continue, and that there have been dealings in the past with both, I don't want to say party, because Trump team was not part of the party, correct? I think what we would regard as bad things happen in both sides. But the biggest money fed, I think, was with the Clintons, not with Trump. Let me ask you, said regulations. I did not mention some of the appointments there. The chief officer of the regulation, the person, Naomi Rao, came straight from the Scalia Law School. He just had started a center for the study of the administrative state. I don't like the word administrative state. It's the regulatory tyranny, I call it. Because administration is good. It's almost like public choice. It's too good of a name for bureaucratic decision making. But Noni Rao is, again, top Yale, graduate, and like the best educated and trained person we have. But no one speaks about Naomi Rao, even that she comes from our circles. Another person who was also Chicago Yale, Diana Burgos-Roth. Diana just won the Atlas Book Award, the Fisher Award last year from Manhattan Institute, has all the possible credentials. She was nominated as one of the deputies in the Minister of the Interior, and she's one of the persons too that they are asking every 2 weeks. They come with the new questions, trying to slow down her names. But again, these are elite appointments, correct? And again, I think that's where we're going to see advances in things that Trump understands more, like regulation and taxation, the things that someone yesterday was saying, things that he understands less and confines on good people, like the judicial appointments. That also we're going to see advances. but in some areas, correct. I'm glad that there has been persistence. He was about to leave the North American Free Trade Agreement, and there was almost like unanimity, on not unanimity, but I think 80% of civil society in the economic world said this would be crazy to do, and so far, so far, so good, correct, in that area.
Qualche altra domanda?
So we have seen difficulties for Trump in dealing with the establishment of the Republican Party. Do you think that this is going to continue for the whole duration of his mandate? Or will he come to terms?
Well, yesterday, I think would likely continue. And yesterday I had a nice dinner with Alberto Mingardi, Alessandro De Nicola, and Marco Bassani, all very astute people. And Alessandro was saying that the worst case scenario it would be, if the Democrats are successful, by beating Trump and winning the 2018, can pivot anywhere that he could, that he could pivot and go with the Democrats. And yet, to all the universal healthcare, minimum universal healthcare passed, it's not impossible. I have something that surprised me. I honestly believe that President Trump, on all the social issues, on LGBT issues, is the least conservative for himself. He's a guy, I do my thing, you do your thing. But the base, the people who support him, that are conservative in those areas, have been so incredibly loyal to him that he has been, I say, overprotective of those topics. For example, Betsy DeVos had to rule about something on that, and she was shy, and he made her be more aggressive. But some of my hardcore conservative friends, social conservatives, they think that any moment, like President Obama changed, saying, opposing the redefinition of marriage, and then supported it. They think that Trump can change it in that area. But there are some areas that I think he would not. I think in national security, I think he really gets along well with part of the military establishment. And again, this can be good or bad, correct? Bad, there is a military industrial complex, there's overspending, there's a lot of waste. And for example, the whole plan by Eric Prince, to privatize and take away from government and get away from nation building in Afghanistan, that was sort of stopped, by this military establishment for now. But again, I think the battles will continue, and the most dangerous one is this Gingrich versus Bannon, because these guys are very strategic in their operation. They have followers and troops, and then you have that fight, mostly the guys willing to fight it in the media, and then you have those Republican establishment guys who fight quietly, but also would like Trump to fail. Correct? I don't think it will get. I think it's going to continue to be ugly. And I'm glad I'm not in politics, because many people are losing friendships over this election.
What about Bannon? Does he still have an influence? Or?
Oh,
yeah.
My God. Yes. And so I have never been with Bannon, but some of my close friends, Tuesday should be with him. we celebrate one of the anti-communist things that happened in the United States. There's something called the pumpkin papers. When the US was totally infiltrated by communists, one of them changed, hid all the relevant material in the pumpkin. So we celebrate Halloween. Bannon will be one of the keynote speakers with Sebastian Gorka. But this is not a secret. For example, he says he's going to try to defeat almost all senators except Ted Cruz. But even in states that are completely Republican, or mostly Republican. So he asked Eric Prince. Eric Prince, do you know who Eric Prince is? Eric Prince came from an industrial family in Michigan. And he went to Kill State College and studied Austrian economics. So he is exactly as we do in Austrian economics. And then joined the Navy SEALs. And created a company called Blackwater to provide service.
Brother of Betsy DeVos.
He's the brother of Betsy DeVos. Exactly. Betsy DeVos, Betsy Prince. And again, he was sort of not doing very well until the terrorist attack began to start, and then there was a huge demand for his services. And so he was asked to run for the Senate in Wyoming. And most of that thing is just to frighten the establishment. This guy is one of the best spoken. He spoke at the Montpelier Society and now at the Philadelphia Society. I invited him to both. And even with academics, it was like the top-rated speech. When they tried to attack him in the Congress, he was so good, they said, let's not have him, because he's good-looking, well-spoken. But the fact that Bannon is planning to do this in a Republican state, there's a line saying that from Gingrich and people who are not even deep state or Ryan's Republican in name only, that really believe that it's very damaging what Bannon is doing, because it's going to polarize even more the situation. Correct? Would be to put, but I think he will continue to be relevant if he doesn't. I don't think he takes care of himself very much. So, unless something happens to him, he's going to add to this climate, to this, which is ugly. Correct. I studied in purpose, correct, showing that it was ugly before. Correct. But then one side, the Bush side, all nice, civilized, and we were taking all the attacks one after another. Correct. And said, oh, then now we're going to play ugly. Correct. And people vote. I know. My wife gets so annoyed when Hillary said, "Oh, a woman voted for Trump because they obeyed their husband." My family was exactly the opposite. My wife is totally American, totally well behaved, but she wanted a bully. She wanted someone badly behaved who would tell in the face to the other side what she felt, all the bad things. Not like Ryan did in there was a debate with Ryan and Biden or Romney, which frustrated many of the people who say, "Hey, you're not defending us." So we continue to hear it. But he was the strategist. And Gorka, when he was in government, was very prudent in saying what was going on. Said, "Look, Trump, what you see outside on TV or in interviews, that's how he is. He's very intuitive. He doesn't read much long things. Bannon is a voracious reader and strategist, and the other person there who influenced his son-in-law, they want the success of the father, of the president, just because they're part of the family. But but that were the lines. But then when General Kelly comes, he put much more discipline. And again, as all these generals had exposure in the Americas, I think we have better chances to have better policies in the Americas than other parts of the world. But just look, yesterday in the Washington Post, correct? Again, it's an article by a guy who's like, it's like you open the newspapers and the second page, Dan Milbank, it's written in jest, you know, almost like a joke, you know, it's written Washington, how Washington will be in 2036. You know, they know how they create tremendous fear. That says, the Trump time and fairness doctrine of 2018 made it a felony to criticize or joke about President Trump unless simultaneously providing a harsher criticism or worse joke about a Democrat. Then they said the Adult Daycare Act of 2018, also known as the Corker Act, making it illegal to raise questions about the president's state of mind. This is all things that will be passed if Trump continues. Yeah? The Huckabee-Sanders Act of 2018, making it a crime to commit the highly inappropriate action of questioning a military officer. On and on, all the crazy things. And then they basically says, well, for journalists it's very easy, says, because each morning I get the direction from Sebastian Gorka, which is my close personal friend, saying, hey, this is what you have to say, each day. You know? So it's a relentless attack of only showing, you know, the potential darker side of Trump. As something that for me it would be dangerous is to start creating a Trump doctrine. And people have done that. There's one never Trumper called Victor Davis Hanson. Well, he was a never Trumper. Victor Davis Hanson from Hoover Institute, very famous commentator. And he did not remain a never Trumper. He just moderated his views. But then he created, no, this is the Trump doctrine. I prefer Trump as a pragmatist. As Trump as he is, never will be a Perón and getting the great majority of the people behind him. You know, the fascist leaders, corporate leaders need to have the new unions, the corporations, and the bureaucracy on their side. Believe me, Trump will never get that, correct? But if they build him saying, you know, almost like, you know, Roosevelt, Keynesianism almost was before Roosevelt, and say, oh no, this is a perfect doctrine, you know, and that combination has remained powerful until today. You know, almost saying that Keynesianism and social engineering by the economists and by the central bank is essential, you know, for a free society. Unfortunately, I think was aided by this great analysis saying, oh, what Roosevelt is doing is perfectly scientific. So for me, it would be disaster because that they find something that Trump more or less adopts. Oh yes, I mean, I was a hidden genius. Yeah, I'm right. Yeah, this is what I was doing. That would be very dangerous. But honestly, I don't think it will happen. All right, so we are in for a bumpy ride, but if the economy, if we are successful in pushing for tax reform, we are saying also civil society, because again, some of these big players in today's world, correct, the strategy of Bannon and Gorka, and some of us in the think tank world, is to put pressure from the outside, and today access to social media. Yeah, and both, no, we're going to have a good fight with the left. You know, that's very, very talented in social media.
Se non ci sono altre domande, io ringrazierei tutti voi e in questo modo Alex Chafuen per questo prezzo.
And again, if you send me your email, I will send you a copy of the link in my website where I have the names of these people, and depending your area, if you need to connect, you know, in education or environment or international affairs, whenever there is a friend of the movement, I will put it there, correct? But it stopped growing one month ago, you know, like,